I was exposed to massive amounts of money very early. If this person can make that much money, then surely I can. So I left home at 13, and I feel like that was the catalyst that really kind of helped me drive myself into all these different kind of areas and leadership and
And
so.
sometimes we can mistake ambition for perfectionism. Hi there. Welcome to Unspeakable Leadership, a space that transcends time, borders, and barriers to reclaim our stories as women of color, leading in organizations, communities, and in our own lives. I'm your host, Rohene and Bouajram. With a 20-year career trajectory of leadership, an aspiring storyteller, mom of a son and a fur baby, first-generation immigrant, and uninvited guest in Canada, I want to thank you for being on this journey with me. Let us grow together in conversation. Hi there. I am thrilled that we continue our journey of this theme, She Crossed the Line. And this next conversation is one that I imagine is going to tug at your heart and probably also going to bring up a lump in your throat. And I'll tell you why I think this. You see, one thing that I know about many women, and particularly many women of color, is that we have dreams and we're often ambitious. And in fact, we talk about what does it mean to be an ambitious woman? Here's what I want you to remember. Often connected to ambition are different branches or different elements. And sometimes we can mistake ambition for perfectionism. The idea that everything has to be perfect. And by virtue of that, we have to be perfect. That there's no room for error, or the margins of error, for some reason, are far more narrower for us than they are for others. And I'm going to push back a little bit on that. Why? Because I used to believe that too, until I realized that that belief doesn't work for me. I'm human. I can't be perfect. And it's actually in the imperfections that I not only learn more about myself, but I also create the space for me to do things differently and also for me to let others help me along my own journey. So, as you hear this conversation, as you watch this conversation between Bianca and I, there might be moments where you might need to check in with what is your definition of ambition? And can you let go of things like perfectionism, people pleasing, and other things that do not serve and often will hold us back? You will see that between Bianca and I think many women and many guests who have joined Unspeakable Leadership, we tend to reframe things. And there's an intentionality behind reframing. When you reframe the idea or the outcome in a different way, your energy changes. I want to share with you something really personal. You see, part of my own inner work was to really think about my inner critic and what does my inner critic tell me? And it was through doing my own inner work and therapy, amongst many other things, that one of the visualizations that I did at one point in time was to visualize the words that came from my inner critic. And one of those words was a total failure. That's what I would tell myself when I didn't do the thing that I wanted to get done right, that I was a total failure. Now, if I live in that space of listening to those words, then you can imagine all sorts of emotions, shame, guilt, everything else kind of comes through. And you might question, what's the point of doing anything? So I had to reframe that. And how I reframed it was I added more words to describe what I was really feeling. So that perhaps when the thing that I wanted to do didn't happen, the words my inner critic would say was, I guess this didn't work out the way I had anticipated or expected or even wanted. And once I started to add those words, three things started to happen. One, the energy was softer. It wasn't as harsh as just two words, total failure. Two, there was so much more compassion for myself. Compassion that I had expectations and compassion that they may not have been met. Keeping space to be able to really understand and unpack what happened, what was mine to hold, and what was mine to acknowledge was out of my control. And the last thing is, the more words we add to describe the things that are happening, sometimes to us and sometimes for us, gives us more accuracy in what's actually going on. Because I'm not a total failure. And if that's the words that you might also hear with your own inner critic, neither are you. We're human. And we're trying to figure out this big world and this big life and the leadership that we're trying to pave a way for in this moment, too. So I hope that you will watch out and listen for what is going to serve you as a reframe in this conversation. As always, if something moves you, stirs within you, let me know. I love hearing from you. Enjoy this episode. Let me tell you a little bit about our next guest, Bianca B. King. Bianca is the CEO and founder of Pretty Damn Ambitious, where she catalyzes ambitious women entrepreneurs to transform their expertise into fulfilling success. With more than 25 years of business and leadership experience, she empowers women to scale with clarity, joy, and confidence, three key ingredients of success. Bianca launched her first business during the Great Recession with just $700 and grew it into 7573 Marketing Group, which has since helped clients generate more than $270 million in revenue. I love that for her, and I love that for us. Her insights have appeared in Forbes, Entrepreneur, Fast Company, Success Magazine, and LinkedIn. A former Forbes Business Council member, she is known as the ambitious architect, challenging outdated definitions of ambitious and inspiring women to design success on their own terms. Bianca, thank you so much for joining us here on season 4 of Unspeakable Leadership.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Rohene, for having me. Very excited to be here and to have this conversation with you.
Likewise. And Bianca, I have to just say, like just even reading your bio, I know that beneath the many accomplishments that you have shared and the many incredible milestones that I have no doubt you have hit, there has been layers and layers connected to that. And so I
So
just want
many.
to say, so many. And so I just want to say thank you because I really think for many of us, women of color, Black women, Indigenous women, racialized women, to be able to see an incredible leader like yourself aspire and then also raise that bar, not just for yourself, but for others, is huge to have somebody who models that in so many ways. And then also with the layers that I know you're going to speak to today. So I just had to open with that.
Oh, well, thank you. That's just very humbling. Sometimes I think, like a lot of women and women of color and Black women, when you hear your acknowledgments and resume, you're like, I did that, I did that. Sometimes we don't
Yeah.
necessarily always catch up to the things that we've done because we're so
Yeah.
busy doing other things. But
Yeah.
I'm really glad to inspire you and anyone else that may be listening or watching.
I love it. I love it. So I think, we would love to hear, who is the Bianca today and how did you become who you are today? If you can speak to your leadership journey, that would be amazing.
Yeah, sure. So we're going to start way back. So I left home at 13, and I feel like that was the catalyst that really kind of helped me drive myself into all these different kind of areas and leadership and so forth. So After leaving home at 13, I ended up putting myself through college. Obviously, not right after 13, but ended up putting myself
Yeah.
through college and started a real estate career, where I worked in commercial real estate for over a decade. And the company that I work with was Cushman and Wakefield. And I worked on a team with an amazing woman who was also my mentor. And we were able to sell over $1.4 billion worth of assets in real estate.
Wow.
Yeah, so this was something, as this, young Black woman in um, corporate, I'm like learning all of these amazing tactics and attributes, and just learning about money as well at a
Yeah.
very early age. And that helped me understand. I wanted a little bit more than just a career in commercial
Mm.
estate.
Hmm.
So from there, but also too, honestly, in commercial real estate too, because I am here in Texas, um, it's very white male dominated. I was a lot of times the only woman in the room, the only person of color in the room, the only woman of color in the room. And believe me, as a lot of you probably listeners and watchers know, I got over it real fast. And so at 32, I decided to tender my resignation and start my marketing agency. And that was in 2008, and that's 7573 Marketing Group. Yeah. So that's how my whole beginning started.
That's amazing. And it sounds like from being surrounded by somebody who could showcase their own leadership, that also had an impact. But what I'm also hearing from you, Bianca, is that it was also a personal journey, a journey of getting to a stage where you decided for yourself that you wanted more and you deserved more. And so uh, providing that resignation and deciding to sort of go into uncharted territory is it's something that is not new to many of us, but it's also scary. And so yeah. What
Yeah.
what was that like to make that decision in 2008 to say I'm going
Yeah.
to create my own marketing agency?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like I was a bit naive, not a bit, a lot naive. And I'm glad that I was, because I think it really helped me just fully embrace that I was no longer a person that worked in corporate, and that I was this entrepreneur, and that I was going to figure it out and make it happen. And thank goodness, I had a very supportive husband, and still do. He was all for me starting this agency. My mentor from the commercial real estate company was still there rooting me on. So I had a lot of support in the sense of, Bianca, can you do it? Yes, absolutely. But the beginning of the, um, starting my entrepreneurial journey, it was fraught with a few challenges. I was very lucky in the very beginning to get a five-figure contract from a real estate company, ironically, that I was able to secure like basically a month after I left my real estate company. But then thereafter, a couple of years into entrepreneurship, I had my $38 moment, which I know you know about. Like when I was like sitting at my kitchen table, I'm like, I'm 35 and only have $38 in my bank account. It was one of those come to Jesus moments where I had to like really dig in and figure out, am I going to really do this? Am I really going to, be an entrepreneur and really put my entire self into it? Or am I going to acquiesce and go back to corporate?
Oh, and I just want to acknowledge that, like sitting at that crossroad of like, am I gonna like double down and stay committed to this part, like this path, or what feels like sometimes going back, right? Am I gonna go back and just tail between what feels like tail between our legs, and I'm
Yeah.
so glad that you didn't,
Me too.
because look look at where you are
Yeah.
now, and so much of what I was hoping as part of season 4, and the theme of season 4, which the theme is she crossed the line, is for us as women to be able to be sharing our own stories and our personal journeys, which you have given us a glimpse, and I know that we'll continue to go deeper and deeper into that. And so I would love to hear, when you hear that theme, she crossed the line, what does that mean for you as a definition, and where did that emerge in some of what you've already shared with us?
Yeah. When I heard the theme, I was like, yes, Rohene. I mean, that is like such a beautiful theme given that we're speaking about unspeakable leadership, right? With the demographic that, you're having on this podcast. So I think I crossed the line honestly at 13. Leaving home at such an early age was definitely a way where I decided, like, I think that I can figure out a way to, kind of have my life in a better way than what was being provided at home. But I feel like recently, my most recent line cross would be redefining ambition. And that's something that I've been doing through the Pretty Damn Ambitious community, right? I was lucky, whatever you want to call the word, to be able to write a piece for Forbes, excuse me, not Forbes, Fast Company, talking about how to redefine ambition. And yeah, it's kind of gone from there. From my perspective, we as women of color and people of color, ambition was never made for us, right? If we are considered ambitious within the workplace, especially corporate, it's frowned upon. They think that we're aggressive, all these other just crazy things that they name us. So, from my perspective, ambition was never made for us. It was never made for women, not in the traditional sense that we think about ambition. So, from my perspective, I was like, ambition is this powerful thing that can literally send people to the moon and create AI, but how can we now be able to, encompass that and use it to our ability or to the best of our ability? So my new definition of ambition is the joyful, diligent pursuit of success informed by one's. And so to me, that was me crossing the line, saying, I'm rejecting this patriarchal, horrible version of ambition that I was never included in, and redefining it in a way that feels more sustainable and joyful for me and my growth.
Ah, first of all, like there's tingles happening here. I just
Love
want
it.
to, and let me tell you why, Bianca. Like, I mean, I've been very grateful to be part of your community that you create through Pretty Damn Ambitious, and for a number of years, and I have to say that each time that I'm connecting in with the community, whether it's at your summit or the events or the sessions that you put on, I'm always redefining my sense of self in relation to ambition.
Mm,
And so I get to live out your redefined definition through the curation of the community that you have so graciously and also intentionally curated. And and then to hear for you again the way that you describe ambition, it's honestly it feels like I'm learning ambition again and again every time that I hear you speak about ambition.
right.
And that to me is so powerful because I do think for many of us who are ambitious, it's a journey of going away from shame, and like I shouldn't be too ambitious because perhaps we've been told to be quiet, or to not take up too much space, or to play safe and play small. And then once we realize, no, this is actually not where I want to play, and this is not the arena I want to be in, then we enter a different level of stakes.
Yeah,
And so when you add that layer of joyful, um I can't help but wonder, for there's somebody who's probably listening and watching who's like, okay, I can claim ambition,
for sure.
but to make it joyful,
Right.
how does that show up for you in what you've created as your redefined definition?
Right. So let's go back to, like, burning out once and then almost burning out
Oh
twice.
my gosh,
And you're
right.
like right? And so, we spend so much time in the pursuit of things, right? Whether it's a degree or, our career, or if you're an entrepreneur, we're trying to, serve our clients and make whatever income level that we're trying. So we're always in this kind of pursuit of things, right? So it's from my perspective, it's like, you can't just only think about that end goal. There has to be these milestone markers where you can experience joy, because again, you only accomplish that goal once, right? So being able to have some joy within that, um, becoming of whatever that thing that you're trying to do is massively important, right? The way that I've done it is, again, making sure that when I have that one amazing thing that happened, like recently, we just signed a new agency client. While I was in Colorado, having a wonderful vacation, I celebrated on top of being on in vacation, to celebrate. And like some of the different things that we do, because a lot of us that are leaders, especially if you're type A or a driven leader, we just go from the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. We don't even take time to like celebrate any of our accomplishments, right? And so, from my perspective, that's the way I kind of um, do joyful ambition, if you will. But I've also created a framework around it,
Oh my
which
gosh. I
five
love
A's,
that.
yeah, which I call the 5 A's of joyful ambition, and they are awareness, alignment, action, attraction, and abundance, and they
Oh,
all coexist together because, again, from my
love that.
perspective, success and joy should coexist together. Joy
Yeah.
feeds your success versus you waiting to be successful and then have
Yeah.
joy.
Oh my gosh. I mean, just even you naming the 5 A's, like I can already, like for me, I like even my body is just alive as I think of, where would I put into practice those 5 A's right now, and how, um, what would be holding me back? So what have you heard from when you put those 5 A's into practice for people? Where are the areas that you see instantly the resistance or the blockers go up, particularly for ambitious women who want to be able to do more?
Yeah, and it's honestly the first one, awareness. Because a lot of us are still living other people's dreams. Maybe, we're an immigrant and we're living our parents' dream because they sacrificed everything to get here. And we aren't even aware that we're really living their dream, not our own, right? When I sit and ask a woman, what do you want? They freeze. It's like, well, I'm not sure. Because again, we have all of these societal expectations and just all the things that are inherited from our family that we're like, what should we do, right? So we kind of follow the status quo and just go along and do, and then we end up with a life that really wasn't ours.
Yeah,
So that first key of awareness, really trying to understand what do you actually want,
yeah,
is massive. And when women stop and really think that through,
yeah.
it's typically not what they're doing. And it's scary because you spent all of this time and all of this effort in this space, and now all of a sudden you're like, I don't want this anymore. So yeah, that's where I see. I'm just in that first day. I see a lot of resistance just right there.
Which I can imagine if already at the first layer of the framework,
Yeah,
um, there's already so much to unlearn and unpack and almost rewire. Um, the rest of the framework becomes even more critical on moving through that first A. At
indeed.
least that's what I'm gathering,
Yeah.
and so how did you, like, what helped you to be able to move through your own framework in a way that um, that led you to embrace a new perspective on life, a new perspective on leadership and your business?
Yeah, yeah, that whole framework is joyful ambition, and I've just, obviously living home at 13, you can imagine some of
Yeah,
the things I've been through.
yeah,
But life just throws so much at you, and you have to be able to understand how to be resilient. And I think that is such an overused word. Um, but how can you be resilient and still have joy? How can you be resilient and still have success, right? So I have just been really trying to make sure that within my life, I'm demonstrating those things. I've had crazy things happen to me over the past few years, as you know. One which I'm sure you won't mind that I share is my husband had a health scare back in 23 and led to us led to rather him having open heart surgery. And I say us because I was like there at every appointment. It probably would have been in the operating room if they would let me. but he's made a remarkable recovery, but it was a 2-year process. And so what do you do with your ambition, if you will, right? So my ambition had to be throttled back a little bit. I wasn't able to do all the things that I had, you know, perfectly mapped out because I am type A, for that year, right? So it's really, but at the same time, um, that surgery saved his life, and it also brought us closer, right? In so many different ways. So yeah, yeah, hopefully I answered your question.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? I just want to really kind of acknowledge and raise something that you're showcasing for us, Bianca, and that is, for many of us who are ambitious, we could take, for example, those things that happen in life and name them a setback, right? And there's so much energy that then gets generated around the name or the label that we give to that particular thing that happens in our life. And so when we name it as a setback, we then kind of almost lead in that direction, as because it's a setback, it means that I'm not closer to my goals, I'm further away.
Right.
um, I have somehow failed, and then we can go down the rabbit hole.
Indeed.
And what you've just shared, and in many ways modeled for us, is how these moments in life can happen, and you can define them differently, name them differently, acknowledge the blessings, the lessons, the opportunities that came from it, while still also appreciating that the the action plan that you had was a little bit derailed, and that's okay,
Yeah,
because
for
there
sure.
was enough good that came from it. And so I really appreciate that, because I what I'm also gathering is, as ambitious women, the recalibration of life happening
Yes,
whilst we're still trying to do life is also part of that joy, that celebration of maybe pauses are also part of the process,
for
and
sure. Yes.
redefining.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I also want to make sure that your listeners and watchers, viewers rather, understand, like, I know a lot of women are like, I would never call myself ambitious, but I promise that you are, because ambition is just means that you want to succeed. That's it. And who does not want to succeed, right? But when these different things are thrown at you in your life, you just learn to navigate, right? And everybody has some crazy tumult that's going to happen in their life, whether it's one or multiple, right? And so just having the flexibility and understanding what your core values are, which really should dictate your version of ambition, really will help you navigate any crazy thing that may come up, right? So for me, it was like, yes, I'm still going to run both of these businesses, but maybe I'm relying a little bit more on my team to do things that I typically would do, which of course makes me a better leader, and which makes them, better leaders as well, right? In turn, so there's this room for this beautiful expansion, uh, if you let it, right? And believe me, I know, like, things aren't always easy. Sometimes, like, the the disruption is, completely heartbreaking, and I've been through that as well. But at the same time, you still need to understand, like, you can still have ambition, you can still, want to have success, but it may just be slightly redefined for that season.
Yeah. Oh gosh, everything that you're saying just resonates with me, and I can only imagine will resonate with those who are listening and watching. And I can't help but also kind of uplift that there is a taboo nature of calling yourself ambitious, and
Yes.
then there's branches of taboo. And so
Yeah.
I'm gonna sort of fall, if I can introduce one of the taboo branches, and that
Let's do
comes
it.
down to money.
Yes.
You know, being ambitious, part of that is also wanting to hit an income threshold that will give you the life that you want to have.
Mhm. Yeah.
In your experience, in your journey, was there an income threshold that you felt was just too far, and how did you break that cycle to say, of course, I can get this and I deserve it?
Yeah. So I'm going to go back just a little bit because you can be ambitious about anything. It's not necessarily only about money or careers or whatever. So like you can be want to be the best mom ever, and that can be your ambition, right? So I want to make sure that people have a more holistic look at ambition versus it just being the career and money and so forth. But as far as like an income threshold, so when I, again, um, I was exposed to massive amounts of money very early when like we're selling these $100 million office buildings, right? So um, seeing that early, I feel like gave me the idea like, well, if this person can make that much money, then surely I can. And I think that's kind of how I was able to kind of land that first contract and such a big contract for a, barely 1 month agency, right? Um, I feel like you have to just understand, again, going back to awareness, what do you want? What do you really want? And
Mm-hmm.
then you focus on that. You just focus on if it's a number, that number, but it's really not about the number. The number is just arbitrary. It's the feeling after that you get that number brings is what you need to be concentrating on. If we're going a little metaphysical into manifestation and so forth.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like you don't want the money, you want what the money brings. The money brings you more freedom, it brings you more choice, it brings whatever your heart's desire. And so that's where if you are stuck at an income level or some type of threshold that you want to surmount, that's what you need to focus on. Focus on the feeling after the feeling is what I call it. Um, think about how you'll feel elated, joyful, exuberant, after you see that amount in your account or whatever it may be.
Thank you. Thank
For
you
sure.
for that reminder, and always metaphysical, like you know me. I'm like, I'm like manifest what?
Yes, 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 for sure, for sure.
I appreciate that because there's so
I
much
no,
power in the energy.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I
Yeah.
think, for the longest time, I was like, when I was first starting out, I felt like I didn't break that
Yeah.
100K mark. It was probably like the first 5 or 6 years. I was like, why can't I break the 100K mark? And
Right.
then, um, was it, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago? Well, 3 or 4 years ago, I earned like, I don't know, 150 in 2 weeks. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
and now I'm, ascending to the next thing. But
Yeah.
I think it's really about really understanding, like I said, what you want,
Yeah.
and then really thinking about that feeling after the feeling. And it works almost every single time. 9 times out of 10, it works.
I appreciate that reminder, and thank you for offering that. My hope is that all of us who are not only watching, listening, but also integrating the knowledge that you're sharing, that we create that and turn that into a daily practice, because there is an energetic exchange that we have
Yes.
with our goals and with what we want to manifest. And I want to say thank you, Bianca. I cannot believe we're I don't know how time just flies by like this. Like it's just like there's a moment in me where I'm just like, oh, we just pause time. And so as we wrap up our time here, I have two last questions. The first one is, we have many listeners and those who watch and view our YouTube channel who are at different stages of their leadership career and also their life. Those are starting off and those who are well established. What would you say to them as a reminder or a strategy as part of this concept of, she crossed the line? What would you want them to remember and what would you want them to take you up on?
Yeah. I think for all of them, no matter where you are, whether you're just barely starting or you're doing your second or third act, you need to have what I call radical self trust. How well do you trust yourself and the things that you're pursuing and doing? I think so many of us look outward for the answer when the answer truly is inside us. And so, really cultivating and developing the trust in yourself. is key to any goal, anything that you want to reach. I would just encourage you just to spend more time with yourself, and I know that can be hard. Sometimes people are or moms or single moms. But if you could just, have some mindfulness time, 5-10 minutes a day, really thinking about who you are, what your values are, what your boundaries are, all of that's going to help you be able to develop that trust, especially in the moment when those moments are high stakes or may test you in some type of way. Because at that point, that's going to kind of be that mirror, if you will, to determine if you trust yourself enough to make the decision that really aligns with who you are.
I just want to echo my gratitude for saying that, because I as somebody who's also been in that place, Bianca, and I know you and I have spoken about, burnout and going through the waves of grief and doubt and in so many different shapes and forms. It is in that stillness with yourself that I've heard the different messages from within that I didn't realize were there, as echoes. And when
For
we
sure.
have these messages that are kind of playing a symphony in the background, we're acting on them consciously and unconsciously.
Indeed.
And so when we find that stillness, I know for me, I've had a chance to be able to say, let's quieten this this message because it's not true anymore,
Indeed.
and
Yep.
let's really amplify this message because this
Right.
is what's going to help me as I think about my own ambitious journey. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
appreciate
as
that.
women of color, we are told and treated so many crazy different ways.
Yeah,
And it's up for us
yeah,
to block it if you can and find the things that actually um, fill you up and give you worth and meaning and all of that, right? Sometimes it can be hard, but I think once you kind of block out that noise and listen to that small still voice, like you're saying, and amplify the thing that actually is good, and just get rid of the other thing. Um, that's where you can really just start trusting yourself and really start making the waves or accomplishing the goals that you're trying to do.
absolutely. I have no doubt, Bianca, there are women, there are listeners, there are those who are definitely checking in with this episode who will feel this call and this desire to want to connect with you, work with you. I mean, you've given them a 5A framework, which if I was listening, I would be like, tell me more about
I love
the
it.
other 4A's. So how do those who would love to connect with you, how do they find you? And is there something that they should take you up on?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the best way to connect with me would be to go on my personal brand website, which is Bianca B as in boy King.com. And I will have a nice little special freebie there for the listeners. A little bit about the 5 A's of joyful ambition. So you can explore it a little bit more for yourself.
Fantastic. Bianca, thank you always for not only being in my own life and my circle, but for also being here on season 4, sharing your wisdom. And I have no doubt inspiring those who are ready to cross the line and wanting to cross the line to know that it does get great on the other side. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Hi there. I just had to pop in to let you know something. I have a gift for you. Leadership can sometimes feel lonely and complex. So check out the resource page on my website and download your free leadership journal or strategic planning guide. I always welcome feedback, so let me know how they support you. Enjoy.